Right, so here's a quick, hang on a sec. Right, so here's a quick exam tip for you. If you're in a maths exam and you can't do a question, put your pen down, get out of your chair, get on the floor and do some press-ups. Maybe one or two squat thrusts, perhaps a couple of sit-ups. Yeah, I mean, it won't help you get the right answer, but you may get some marks for working out. Right, let's start the lesson. Let's start the lesson. Right, trigonometry. You need a calculator for this lesson. It needs to have these three buttons, sine, cos and tan. We're going to be doing trigonometry for right-angled triangles. A right-angled triangle is just a triangle with a right angle in it, with a 90-degree angle. First of all, I'm going to talk about the names we give to the three sides in a right-angled triangle when we do this topic. So the longest side of a right-angled triangle, you may know this already, is called the hypotenuse. So this is the longest side, so it's the hypotenuse. And if you're unsure which side is the longest side in a right-angled triangle, it's always the side opposite the right angle. So this is the longest side, the hypotenuse. The names of the two other sides are opposite and adjacent. Adjacent just means next to. So opposite and adjacent are the names of the two shorter sides. Which is which depends on which angle is being considered in the question. So let's say this angle is the angle being considered in the question. Which side do you think would be the adjacent side? Well, adjacent just means next to, as I said. So it's this side here. This side is next to the angle. Adjacent. And this side is the opposite side because it's opposite the angle. So the names of the two shorter sides depend on which angle you're considering. So had I marked this angle here, then this side would be the adjacent side and this side would be the opposite side. The hypotenuse never changes, it's always the longest side. Right, I'm going to be abbreviating these three names today. So instead of hypotenuse, I'm just going to write hyp, H-Y-P. Instead of adjacent, I'm just going to write adj, A-D-J. And instead of opposite, I'm just going to write op, O-double-P. Right, I'm now going to talk about the meaning of these three buttons, these three words, sine, cos and tan, on your calculator. Everyone learns a made-up word to remember what they mean. So everyone learns this word, SOHCAHTOA, just as a way of remembering what the buttons mean. It's to do with the sides of a right-angled triangle, opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. So sine means opposite divided by hypotenuse. So sine means the opposite side, op, divided by hypotenuse, just using the abbreviations there. Cos means adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So cos means adjacent divided by hypotenuse. And tan, what do you think that means? Well, it's just the opposite divided by the adjacent. Tan means opposite divided by adjacent. It's the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So a way of remembering all of that is just SOHCAHTOA. Now, this isn't going to make any sense to you at the moment. So don't worry if it seems complicated. It will make more sense when we do our first example, hopefully. So right, so here's our first example on finding a missing side, finding an unknown side. Here's my right angle triangle, and let's say this angle is 27 degrees and this angle is 6 centimetres, and let's say we're interested in finding this side here, which I'll just label X. So the first thing you need to do is you need to label the three sides, hyp, op and adj. So which side's the hypotenuse? Well, it's the longest side, opposite the right angle, so hyp. Which side's the adjacent side? Well, relative to this angle, the given angle, it's this side here. So this is the adjacent side. which means this side is the opposite side, because it's opposite the given angle. Now if you notice, adj, the adjacent side, wasn't marked in the question. It's not a side we've been given, it's not a side we're trying to find, so we can just ignore it. This question is not going to be about the adjacent. We've been given the hypotenuse and we're trying to find the opposite. So we need to find the button that links those two sides. So which button is to do with the hypotenuse and the opposite? Which button is to do with the hypotenuse and the opposite? Well, it's sine. Sine means opposite divided by hypotenuse. So we're going to be using the sine button. I'm just drawing it here as a button. So the first thing you need to do is press, because the angle is 27 degrees, you need to press sine 27. Sine 27. And you should get 0.45399 and so on. Just written down the first three digits. Keep all the digits on the screen. If you haven't got that answer, your calculator might be in the wrong mode. Your calculator should be in degrees mode, and there should be a D, a little D at the top of the display. So you need to check if your calculator's in the right mode. Now, what does this mean? Well, sine means opposite divided by hypotenuse. So I'm just going to write that over here. Opposite over hypotenuse. So the calculator is telling us that when the angle is 27 degrees in a right angled triangle, the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse is this number here, 0.453. So it's telling you the relationship between the two sides, sort of their ratio. It's saying that opposite divided by hypotenuse, if the angle is 27 degrees, is 0.453. Now, for this particular triangle, opposite divided by hypotenuse is x divided by 6. So we can replace this with x divided by 6. And the calculator is telling us that that's equal to 0.453. So now we have an equation to solve, and we just want to find what x is. When I solve equations, I like to use what I call the balance method, where I do the same thing to both sides to keep them balanced, to keep both sides equal. So we want to get x on its own. We've got x divided by 6. So what's the inverse, the opposite of dividing by 6? It's multiplying by 6. So to get x on its own, we need to multiply this side by 6. Of course, what we do to one side, we do to the other side as well, to keep them equal. So x divided by 6 times 6 is just x, and 0.453 ... times 6. To work that out on your calculator, just keep all the digits on the display and just press times 6. Or what you can do is, with all the digits on the display, you can just press answer times 6. The answer button, ANS, is usually next to the equal sign, and it just remembers your most recent answer. So you can press times 6 or answer times 6, and you should get, to one decimal place, 2.7. 2.7 to one decimal place, and we're in centimetres because that's centimetres there. So it's 2.7 centimetres to one decimal place. Right, let's do one more example on finding a missing side. So here's a right angled triangle. Let's say this angle is 72 degrees, and let's say this side is 5 centimetres. And suppose we want to find this side here. Just going to label it Y this time. So first thing you do, as before, is just label the three sides. So which side is the hypotenuse? Well, it's this side here. It's the longest side, opposite the right angle, hypotenuse. Which side is the adjacent side to the given angle? Well, it's this side here, because it's next to the angle. That's the adjacent side, which means that this side here is the opposite side to the angle. Op. Now if you notice in this question, the hypotenuse wasn't marked at all. So we can ignore this side. It's not going to come into it. This question is about the adjacent side and the opposite side. The adjacent side we're trying to find, and the opposite side we've been given. So which button is to do with these two sides? Sine, cos or tan. So which button is to do with the adjacent side and the opposite side? Well, it's tan. Tan means opposite divided by adjacent, so it's tan. So we're going to use the tan button this time. So as before, the first thing you write down is sine, cos or tan of the angle. So the angle is 72 degrees. We're going to be using the tan button. So we write down tan 72. So that's the first thing that you write down. If you do that on your calculator now, if you do tan 72, just check that you get this number here. It should be 3.07 ... I've just written down the first couple of digits, but keep all the digits on screen. You'll need that for later. Now what does this mean? Well, tan means opposite divided by adjacent. So I'll just write that over here. Tan means opposite divided by adjacent. So the calculator is telling us this time that if the angle in the right angle triangle is 72 degrees, then the opposite side divided by the adjacent side is 3.07. So again, it's telling us the relationship between those two sides. It's telling us their ratio. It's saying that the opposite side divided by the adjacent side is 3.07 if the angle is 72 degrees. Now for this particular triangle, opposite divided by adjacent is 5 divided by y. So we can replace this with 5 divided by y. It's this way round this time. And notice that this time the y is on the bottom of the fraction. And we know that's equal to 3.07. So we have an equation again, and we want to find y. We need to get y on its own. Because it's on the bottom of the fraction this time, that means it's going to take 2 steps to get y on its own instead of just 1. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get y off the bottom of the fraction. So we have on this side 5 divided by y. The opposite, or inverse, of dividing by y is multiplying by y. So we want to multiply this side by y. That will get it off the bottom of the fraction. But of course we've got to do the same thing to the other side to keep both sides equal. So we're going to multiply both sides by y. Let's see what we get. Well, on this side, 5 divided by y times y is just 5. And on the right hand side we have 3.07 times y. Now we want to get y on its own. It's being multiplied by 3.07, so we need to divide by 3.07. Divide by 3.07. And we need to do the same thing to the left hand side as well. Divide by 3.07. So we end up with, on the right hand side, we end up with y. And on the left hand side we end up with 5 divided by 3.07. So to work out y, you just have to press 5 divided by answer, assuming you kept all the digits on the screen. Remember, when you press answer, the calculator remembers the decimal that was on the screen. So if you press 5 divided by answer, you should get 1.6 to 1 decimal place, or 1.62 to 2 decimal places. I'm just going to write it to 1 decimal place. Y equals 1.6 to 1 decimal place. And because this was in centimetres, that means the answer's in centimetres as well. So it's 1.6 centimetres to 1 decimal place. That's the end of the first lesson on trigonometry. I'm going to be doing one more lesson on trigonometry. I think I'll call it Lesson 2 on trigonometry. In this lesson we were finding missing sides. In the next video I'm going to be doing finding missing angles of right-angled triangles. So see you then. Bye!